Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Full Spectrum Survival. It is February 16th, and we are bringing you headlines from America and from around the world. News and information that you and your family need to know to make sound decisions, to make sure that you're ready for a coming environmental and global collapse. What we see happening right now is a whole bunch of storms are spreading across the United States of America. We have a massive amount of flooding that we're going to be getting to in today's video. We also have Donald Trump sending out search and rescue teams, telling them to get the National Guard ready because we know that this is not going to be over. We're going to see a lot of real earth-changing events, from earthquakes to volcanic eruptions. We're probably going to see some space or solar events this year. Things are definitely getting weird. Yeah, Ebola is back. We're going to do another little broadcast on that in the morning. Ebola in New York, hazmat teams set up. We've got the whole grounds, quarantine and lockdown in that area. They shut the street down. Lots of things going on here. Vance, they're out here making truth out of the threats they had that they would take down any politician that spoke out against Donald Trump or was not in alignment with a new, stronger America. Now, this was back September 11th, as it shows, 2024.
I forget exactly which official it was within the European Union, but sent Elon this threatening letter that basically said, we're going to arrest you if you platform Donald Trump, who, by the way, is the likely next president of the United States.
Now, that's 2024, September, and then here we have everybody's afraid because Vance was up there telling the truth about what was happening. This was at the Munich Security Conference, and what I've seen from the videos that I've watched of this security conference, it was a pretty bad situation where these people know that a lot of what's happening in our world is inside of their control. Now, when you get into an accident, that's outside of your control. If you're the one drinking and driving, that's inside of your control. And they know that the direction that they are pushing our planet and all of the people of this world is inside of their control. So let's hear what Vance has to say. They say he's laying a blowtorch to globalism and censorship. I want to thank all of you for being here with us. Full Spectrum Survival, only on YouTube. Make sure you leave a comment where you're calling in from, guys. I am at the northern end of Alabama. We might get a little bit of snow later this week. We're going to have to wait and see.
Especially to the hosts of the Munich Security Conference for being able to put on such an incredible event. We're, of course, thrilled to be here. We're happy to be here. And, one of the things that I wanted to talk about today is, of course, our shared values. And, it's great to be back in Germany. As you heard earlier, I was here last year as United States Senator. I saw Foreign Secretary.
This is a long video, and there was a really important comment that came up that I want to get to before we continue with Vance here. Somebody asked, has your child rebelled against prepping yet? And I'm going to say no, because we've never really force-fed preparedness. It's just been our lifestyle. And if your lifestyle is good exercise and good eating habits, it's likely that your kids are going to follow with exercise and good eating habits. But if you force-feed them and tell them this is what you have to do, and you do it under threat of duress or crisis, then they'll likely rebel against it. And if anything, my oldest son, almost 20 now, is going the opposite direction, and he's starting to prepare for the understanding that his generation's world is going to be completely different. He's trying to stack up on the things that are important to him, and I'm never going to diminish those things that he finds important, whether it's his entertainment or the things that he enjoys or making sure that he has what's important to him. So he just does it naturally on his own. We've never force-fed it. Mom and dad just always have what they need, always prepared for a medical emergency, always have a good understanding of what's going on in the world, know how to shoot and hunt. We have food in the freezer. There's vegetables from, any gardening that we do. It's not anything that's like, oh, you have to live this way. It's just he looks at what's going on in the rest of the world and then looks at how mom and dad live and says, okay, well, I guess that's probably a better choice as an individual. So great question there. And I do think that we need to kind of do that with our kids, not really push anything on them. Let them understand that the world is a scary place, but not push it.
David Lammy joked that both of us last year had different jobs than we have now. But now it's time for all of our countries, for all of us who have been fortunate enough to be given political power by our respective peoples, to use it wisely to improve their lives. And I want to say that, I was fortunate in my time here to spend some time outside the walls of this conference over the last 24 hours. And I've been so impressed by the hospitality of the people, even of course, as they're reeling from yesterday's horrendous attack. And the first time I was ever in Munich was with my wife, actually, who's here with me today, on a personal trip. And I've always loved the city of Munich, and I've always loved its people. And I just want to say that we're very moved, and our thoughts and prayers are with Munich and everybody affected by the evil inflicted on this beautiful community. We're thinking about you, we're praying for you, and we will certainly be rooting for you in the days and weeks to come. Now, thank you. I hope that's not the last bit of applause that I get, but we gather at this conference, of course, to discuss security, and normally we mean threats to our...
What's with the sinkhole? Well, we do have a whole bunch of flooding that took place in the last 24 hours. We have Donald Trump sending the National Guard out. There's a decent amount of a loss of life, unfortunately, because of this. People just weren't prepared, and that's a big mission statement of mine, is making sure everyone knows it doesn't have to be some world-ending thing. You'll have your own SHTF event, the Hits the Fan event, your own survival event, and it can be completely outside of anything that is even region or statewide or even city shattering. A personal house fire, that's a life-changing event. A storm takes your roof, that could be a life-changing event. Somebody gets into a car accident, a heart attack, whatever it could be. There are so many different life-changing events that don't even matter what's going on with news or the rest of the world. Putin, Ukraine, China, and Taiwan. None of those things matter if it's something that happens at your house. And here we've had, over the course of the last, 24 hours, massive amounts of flooding. People have lost their life, their homes gone, all of their belongings ruined, really terrible positions. And that's inside of the USA. We also have that Ebola scare over in New York. We've got tuberculosis outbreaks running across the USA right now. We have some measles outbreaks taking place. We have just a lot going on, guys. We really have to watch what's happening and start to pay really close attention, because let's face it, we're not going to see anything better. We're going to start to see a whole bunch worse this very year. So here's some sinkhole information. People are saying there's some sinkholes going on. I haven't seen anything yet on the sinkholes besides just what I saw with the flooding. And in fact, I don't see anything right now popping up. So if you have some information, please put it down there. We can cover it live together. Sinkhole I-64, marker 27. That was 24 hours ago. I don't know that it's any sort of a super large deal, just something that's happening because of the flooding.
External security. I see many great military leaders gathered here today. But while the Trump administration is very concerned with European security and believes that we can come to a reasonable settlement between Russia and Ukraine, and we also believe that it's important in the coming years for Europe to step up in a big way to provide for its own defense, the threat that I worry the most about vis-a-vis Europe is not Russia, it's not China, it's not any other external actor. And what I worry about is the threat from within, the retreat of Europe from some of its most fundamental values, values shared with the United States of America.
Now, I have a video coming up on this live show. I hope we can get to it. And this video shows that there are massive protests taking place, and these are very Middle Eastern versus westernized protests. So it's the Middle Easterns that have been inside of these countries, like countries of Europe, and they're very adamant about changing the values of modern European lifestyles and what happens in those societies and moving them toward a more traditionally Middle Eastern lifestyle. And you can see I'm trying to be a little bit linguistically not very, I'm trying to choose my words wisely. And why am I doing this? Because even though X.com is great on information and getting it to you, even though Zuckerberg went over to Trump and he was like, I'm sorry, I'll do whatever to not censor, here and there, we still have some platform issues. So we really have to be careful with how we talk about things, but get that information out. That's why we stand up and do these things, so that we can all see that there are ways to disseminate good information and let everybody know what's going on. And right now we have a complete de-westernization of the modern Western world. And you've got to watch out for that, because with that comes a lot of other problems. And here's J.D. Vance, Vice President to the United States of America, as we take a much stronger position in our world as a country, as America, telling them how it has to be.
Now, I was struck that a former European commissioner went on television recently and sounded delighted that the Romanian government had just annulled an entire election. He warned that if things don't go to plan, the very same thing could happen in Germany too. Now, these cavalier statements are shocking to American ears. For years, we've been told that everything we fund and support is in the name of our shared democratic values. Everything from our Ukraine policy to digital censorship is billed as a defense of democracy. But when we see European courts canceling elections and senior officials threatening to cancel others, we ought to ask whether we're holding ourselves to an appropriately high standard. And I say ourselves because I fundamentally believe that we are on the same team. We must do more than talk about democratic values, we must live them. Now, within living memory of many of you in this room, the Cold War positioned defenders of democracy against much more tyrannical forces on this continent. And consider the side in that fight that censored dissidents, that closed churches,
very interesting.
that
A lot of
canceled
information
elections.
here.
Were they the good guys? Certainly not. And thank God they lost the Cold War. They lost because they neither valued nor respected all of the extraordinary blessings of liberty. The freedom to surprise, to make mistakes, to invent, to build. As it turns out, you can't mandate innovation or creativity, just as you can't force people what to think, what to feel, or what to believe. And
now, that's what they've wanted to do for a very long time. They've wanted to take your thoughts and your feelings and convert them to a very small, narrow-minded ideology. And they wanted you to think these ways and repeat this pattern of behavior, because you would then become a more easily controlled individual. And if they took away the man's testosterone and the woman's want to have babies, then they would have a population that had nothing to do that they found service in other than work. And when you're a good little worker and you pay your taxes and you spend your money on bread and circus and you go to the football games and you play the bets and you buy everything they tell you to buy and the celebrities tell you what to watch, and you start doing all these things, you're a great little servant, a great little slave. And that's what they wanted. They didn't want you to have your own thoughts. They didn't want the guys to be guys. They didn't want the girls to be girls. They wanted a very controllable society. So really important what he's saying there, and a show of the different direction that we are taking.
we believe those things are certainly connected. And unfortunately, when I look at Europe today, it's sometimes not so clear what happened to some of the Cold War's winners. I look to Brussels, where EU commissars warn citizens that they intend to shut down social media during times of civil unrest the moment they spot what they've judged to be, quote, hateful content. Or to this very country, where police have carried out raids against citizens suspected of posting anti-feminist comments online as part of, quote, combating misogyny on the internet.
Now listen to that. He's saying where the police are overstepping their grounds and moving straight into tyranny territory by just somebody posting something online of their own personal views. Now, granted, this isn't in the USA, but it's not much better in the USA. Because here in the USA, if you post something that somebody doesn't like, even if it's within your constitutional rights to do so, you're going to find not just condemnation and demonization, you're also going to find the every applicable law enforcement agency or NGO will be coming down your throat just for it.
A day of action. I look to Sweden, where 2 weeks ago the government convicted a Christian activist for participating in Koran burnings that resulted in his friend's murder. And as the judge in his case chillingly noted, Sweden's laws to supposedly protect free expression do not, in fact, grant, and I'm quoting, a free pass to do or say anything without risking offending the group that holds that belief. And perhaps most concerningly,
Me too,
I
Craig.
look to
Glad
our
you're here.
very dear friends, the United Kingdom.
It gives us a chance. You know, we don't want to go down an 8-hour doom scroll rabbit hole, but we do want to gather the information that really will shape the next couple of weeks. Some of these press conferences, some of these speeches, some of the news that gets by the headlines and doesn't get caught on. You know, the news cycle of legacy media, they want you to follow a very repeatable 24-hour to 48-hour cycle. And that cycle, I'm sure if you've ever watched news in your local area, it's, hey, here's how everyone's going to die. Here's some cute puppies and kittens. Here's what's good going on in your city. Oh, tomorrow, don't worry. We're going to tell you how everyone's going to die. And then we're going to show you some cute puppies and kitties. And then we're going to tell you what's going on positive in your city. And they follow this same clockwork pattern over and over again of who's going to die, how you're going to die, puppies and kitties, and then some other garbage. And it just repeats itself over and over again because it's a mind trip. Whereas here, we're just looking for a little glimpse. Like, I want to know if the road is closed ahead while I'm driving. I don't care what else is happening. Tell me if that road is closed ahead. Tell me what's going on in the future. Tell me a little bit about what's going to happen next. And then I can make my own decisions about how to keep myself safe and my family safe.
Where the backslide away from conscience rights has placed the basic liberties of religious Britons in particular in the crosshairs.
Thanks, Anna.
A little over 2 years ago, the British government charged Adam Smith Connor, a 51-year-old physiotherapist and an Army veteran, with the heinous crime of standing 50 meters from an abortion clinic and silently praying for 3 minutes. Not obstructing anyone, not interacting with anyone, just silently praying on his own. And after British law enforcement spotted him and demanded to know what he was praying for, Adam replied simply, it was on behalf of the unborn son he and his former girlfriend had aborted years before. Now, the officers were not moved. Adam was found guilty of breaking the government's new buffer zones law, which criminalizes silent prayer and other actions that could influence a person's decision within 200 meters of an abortion facility.
Love that. They would love to be the ones to tell you what to do. They would love to use organizations like USAID to tell you what to do, to benefit themselves. But do they want you to think for yourselves? Absolutely not. Hey, sick and tired, glad to have you here.
He was sentenced to
Hopefully you're not sick and tired today.
pay thousands of pounds in legal costs to the prosecution. Now, I wish I could say that this was a fluke, a one-off crazy example of a badly written law being enacted against a single person. But no, this last October, just a few months ago, the Scottish government began distributing letters to citizens whose houses lay within so-called safe access zones, warning them that even private prayer within their own homes may amount to break.
So we have a tuberculosis outbreak. For anybody who's just tuning in, we have some measles outbreaks happening across the United States of America. We have tuberculosis at food manufacturing facilities in other countries that supply some of their food to the United States of America. We have a potential Ebola scare over in New York. They're doing some contact tracing there. It may have just been like a neurovirus or something. The person they were coming from areas that had Ebola outbreaks. There's a lot of people out there saying that Ebola is going to be the keyword of 2025. This is, like Ron Duke says, a brave new world.
The law. Naturally, the government urged readers to report any fellow citizen suspected guilty of thought crime. In Britain and across Europe,
thanks, sick and tired,
free speech, I fear, is in retreat. And in the interest of comedy, my friends, but also in the interest of truth, I will admit that sometimes the loudest voices for censorship have come not from within Europe, but from within my own country.
Now listen to that.
Where the prior administration
I'm trying to search something for you guys. I want you to hear this again. Where he's taking blame as the United States of America for what has been done in other countries. You see, the USA started on a pedestal, right? And everybody looked up to the USA because that's what the term on a pedestal means, right? You look up, and so you see the USA up there, and the USA said, hey, you're either going to play with us or you're going to be against us. And if you're against us, this is old Bush days, old Clinton-Obama days, they're like, well, you're going to get a regime change. And so everyone who looked up to America said, okay, we'll do whatever you do, tax dollar daddy. And America said, okay, here's what you're going to do, because a new administration came in when they wanted to push an agenda that the people didn't know what they were by looking down. They didn't know what they wanted to do. The women didn't want to have kids. The guys didn't know how to be guys. They were afraid to talk in ways that they have grown up talking. All these things, not for the betterment of the entire society, no, for the betterment of an agendized administration, or an agendized way of forming a society into better servants. Not civil servants, better servants. And so all of these other countries that were looking for tax dollar daddy, they took that and ran with it. So you had a spreading, a contagion, if you will, a disease spreading that infected the minds of people. It happened in corporations. It happened in entire societies where you couldn't speak your mind. You couldn't act a certain way. They feminized all the male roles. They manized all of the female roles. They did all of this craziness, right? And then things started turning sour. And so America is trying to wipe the slate right now, and they're trying to go back a couple of decades and say, hey, we are obviously screwed up. And so we need to go back to our grandparents, maybe our great-grandparents' day, not way back there, because back there was some really nasty, bad social behavior. No, maybe somewhere a generation or two ago, right before the Twilight movies, right before we started calling metrosexual a thing. So maybe right before that, we need to go back to where the kids were maybe healthy in school, and we didn't have laws against telling somebody they weren't healthy if they weren't able to do one push-up or one sit-up, where maybe the Army had individuals come in that you had to pass certain physical and mental requirements to be able to get on Uncle Sam's teat for the next whatever years. We had these requirements. So maybe we need to go back there. And the only way to do it is to accept responsibility, like you have J.D. Vance doing, Donald Trump doing, Doge, pushing a little responsibility, but people are accepting it, the federal government, and start over. And that's where we're at. Thank you so much, Sick and Tired. Blessings, everyone. Gratefulness is happiness. Thank you, Brad and Kelly. It's really important to be grateful for what we do have, because we're all here today in our whatever forms of health that we have. Yeah, the psych test on. We're all here today talking about these things and knowing that there's something, even one little thing that we can do to be better and more prepared.
Media companies in retreat.
Now listen to Vance.
And in the interest of comedy, my friends, but also in the interest of truth, I will admit that sometimes the loudest voices for censorship have come not from within Europe, but from within my own country, where the prior administration threatened and bullied social media companies to censor so-called misinformation. Misinformation like, for example, the idea that coronavirus had likely...
There's no such thing really as misinformation. We have blended that word, misinformation, with a connection in our brains as humans that misinformation means anything that doesn't agree with my alignment, then that's misinformation. Where that's not the word. Misinformation shouldn't even be in our vocabulary. We should have right and wrong. Everything else is about perception, right? Because what bathroom someone goes into, it's either right or wrong. And you can tell because it's probably on your birth certificate or your passport. But whatever somebody wants to do about what they believe, well, it's perception. What they think should happen in a society, perception. But there's right and wrong. And so we need to get back to that.
And thanks to all the gathered delegates and
looks like I
luminaries
went
and
back a little.
Way, or even worse, win an election. Now, this is a security conference, and I'm sure you all came here prepared to talk about how exactly you intend to increase defense spending over the next few years in line with some new target.
Dude's at an opera house.
And that's great, because as President Trump has made abundantly clear, he believes that our European friends must play a bigger role in the future of this continent. We don't think, you hear this term, burden sharing, but we think it's an important part of being in a shared alliance.
Appreciate you asking, Derek. We are good. Kelly is out there with one of our friends making spaghetti and homemade rolls, breadsticks right now. I think that we just had a little bit of cheesecake that they had made last night. The kids they finished their school while my oldest is out of school. They're playing a couple of games together with their friends. Life is good. We're watching what's going on, making sure nothing too crazy is happening. So everybody's happy and healthy.
Together that the Europeans step up while America focuses on areas of the world that are in great danger. But let me also ask you, how will you even begin to think through the kinds of budgeting questions if we don't know what it is that we are defending in the first place? I've heard a lot already in my conversations, and I've had many, many great conversations with many people gathered here in this room. I've heard a lot about what you need to defend yourselves from, and of course that's important. But what has seemed a little bit less clear to me, and certainly I think to many of the citizens of Europe, is what exactly it is that you're defending yourselves for. What is the positive vision that animates this shared security compact that we all believe is so important? And I believe deeply that there is no security if you are afraid of the voices, the opinions, and the conscience that guide your very own people. Europe faces many challenges, but the crisis this continent faces right now, the crisis I believe we all face together, is one of our own making.
That's right. The crisis that we are facing right now, the biggest security problem is what we have done. We have allowed our country to minimize defense, minimize offense. We have been weakened as a country and as an entire Western group. Remember the old videos? Guys, I grew up in a Live Leak days. And what was before Live Leak? I forget what the other one was, like one of the first raw video sharing sites, eBalm. I think it was like eBalm's World or something, where you could just find some wild things out there that obviously people are crazy. You could see the heading videos. You could see all the crazy things that happen in other countries because rawness is reality. And I can make my own decisions and perceptions and be traumatized or not traumatized by my free will to watch or not watch that kind of thing. And then it all became censored, right? Where's all of that? Do you think the beheadings stopped? Do you think that all of the crazy and bad violence stopped? Do you think the gang violence stopped? Do you think the kidnappings and brutal murdering stopped? No, it just is no longer allowed to be shown. And why is that? Is it because too many people were copycatting it? No, I don't think so. Because we didn't see a whole bunch of, Christian high school kids go out there and some other people. No, it wasn't copycatted. Traumatizing them, maybe, if they couldn't stop themselves from watching. But letting them understand that this world is a very raw place, yes. And then you realize that because other people can be so raw, you have to be in your own responsibility of preparedness. And it's not up to anyone else. It's not up to the cops. It's not up to anyone but you to make sure that you and your family are safe, make sure that you are able to be prosperous, make sure that you have a backup plan. All those things are up to you. But instead, society said, no, let's censor them from the truth. And let's get them thinking that, everything's puppy dogs and rainbows and cat videos and Mr. Beast challenges and whatever shows we want them to watch. And let's let them think that the only bad things that happen are on TV. And we'll call everything else misinformation. We'll call everything else disinformation. And we'll get them so redirected from the truth that they don't even know what the truth is. And then when they're so confused, we'll tell them to look down. If they don't see their feet and everything in between, we'll tell them you don't know what that is. Instead, maybe you should start thinking about it, or it is what I tell you it is. And then we'll push certain chemical pharmaceuticals, and we'll do all of these really horrible things in a huge kind of thought experiment on an entire society. We will make them better servants. And that seems to be the word of the day from the good old Sesame Street of America. Make them better servants.
If you're running in fear of your own voters, there is nothing America can do for you. Nor, for that matter, is there anything that you can do for the American people who elected me and elected President Trump. You need democratic mandates to accomplish anything of value in the coming years. Have we learned nothing that thin mandates produce unstable results?
Hey, Inverness.
But there is so much of value that can be accomplished with the kind of democratic mandate that I think will come from being more responsive to the voices of your citizens. If you're going to enjoy competitive economies, if you're going to enjoy affordable energy and secure supply chains, then you need mandates to govern, because you have to make difficult choices to enjoy all of these things. And of course, we know that very well in America. You cannot win a democratic mandate by...
Now look at this. This is a chairman of the Munich Security Council breaking down in tears because they say Europe is being governed by extremism.
After the speech of Vice President Vance on Friday, we have to fear that our common value base is not that common anymore. I'm very grateful to all those European politicians that spoke out and reaffirmed the values and principles that they are defending. No one did this better than President Zelensky. Let me conclude, and this becomes difficult.
Come on. Now, who are you more concerned with? Vance and Trump 2025 or this dude right here as a country leader? Who are you more concerned with? If I'm China, if I'm Russia, who am I more concerned with? Trump and Vance saying y'all effed around and now you're finding out? Or this dude who breaks down in tears because little baby Zelensky is out there, telling everyone, that you're next if you don't give me more money, more of your children, more of your taxpayers' money, more weapons, more this and more that, with nothing in return, except maybe some contracts through defensive contracts. Well, then you break down crying because pansy pants isn't strength.
Answering your opponents or putting them in jail, whether that's the leader of the opposition, a humble Christian praying in her own home, or a journalist.
I think that, so you the people and somebody else, keep any investment talk, it's getting a little fishy. I'm getting a little sus at the investment in XRP talk. So yeah, crying is okay. You're absolutely right. But instilling the values of weakness from a cultural standpoint, which is what he was talking about, that don't give in to Vance, don't give in to Trump, instill the values of weakness that have taken Europe to the point that they're at right now. That's what he broke down about.
Journalists trying to report the news. Nor can you win one by disregarding your basic electorate on questions like who gets to be a part of our shared society. And of all the pressing challenges that the nations represented here face, I believe there is nothing more urgent than mass migration.
Listen.
Today, almost 1 in 5 people living in this country moved here from abroad. That is, of course, an all-time high. It's a similar number, by the way, in the United States, also an all-time high. The number of immigrants who entered the EU from non-EU countries doubled between 2021 and 2022 alone, and of course it's gotten much higher since.
Guys, thank you for watching with us. Full Spectrum Survival only on YouTube. We're bringing you headlines from America and from around the world. We are in a very dynamic and shifting world right now. America's stance on everything is changing, from the economy to the corruption of our past, and not just the Democrats' past, the Republicans' past too. We're going to see some violence because of it. If we don't start seeing people go to jail or at least be punished because of the fraud that has taken place, you're going to see a lot of people get very upset about it. It's just a very quickly changing theater. And we're bringing you that information here every day. Full Spectrum Survival. Make sure that you click the subscribe button down there and make sure that you have that bell alert. We only get like 5% of our views come from people who have that bell alert checked. That way you see it every time a new video comes out. So make sure that you click that bell and click the all button.
And we know the situation, it didn't materialize in a vacuum. It's the result of a series of conscious decisions made by politicians all over the continent and others across the world over the span of a decade.
Hey, Ingrid and Charlie.
We saw the horrors wrought by these decisions yesterday in this very city. And of course, I can't bring it up again without thinking about the terrible victims who had a beautiful winter day in Munich ruined.
Derek, thank you so much.
And
okay, he's repeating himself there. Thank you so much. Thanks for the work you do, that you put in to keep us informed. Thanks, Derek. I really appreciate it.
Prayers are with
okay,
them.
Let's get past JD Vance here. Let's see what else is going on here. This is on tariffs.
2018,
This is a really good watch because it kind of shows you what's being played out.
Imposed ad valorem duties, tariffs on imports of steel at a 25% rate. Since that time, a large number of exclusions and exceptions to that tariff rule have been implemented. Because of the damage to the United States steel industry that those exceptions and exclusions have imposed, we're now, this order would reimpose that 25% ad valorem tariff rate on imports of steel, and it's presented for your signature now.
Okay. Do you understand what that means? It's a big deal. It's a big deal. This is the beginning of making America rich again.
Thank you so much, ALPC. Appreciate the $10 Canadian for the super chat and the support of our family here. I've said it before, we're only a 3-person crew here, me, my wife, and my oldest child. So you're supporting our family and all of the information to continue going out. No teleprompters there, that's right. So Trump is doing something important. What he's doing right now is making sure that the media that is present actually asks questions, understands what he's about to sign, and then you'll see him ask somebody else too.
Mr. Secretary, do you have anything to say? As you know, Howard is Secretary of Commerce, doing a fantastic job. And what do you have to say about it?
Thanks, man.
So when you imposed the tariffs the first time, right, you added 120,000 jobs. And since that time, it's been picked away and nicked away and excluded away, and we've lost 107,000 jobs. And remember, these aren't just general jobs. These are steel workers in America, and now you're going to bring them back. You're going to bring those 120,000 jobs back to America. You are the president who's standing up for the American steel worker, and I am just tremendously impressed and delighted to stand next to you.
So he was definitely a scripted part of that, without a doubt, but it's the truth. We have tried to, through globalization and profiteering and corporate corruption, we have tried to outsource everything to the lowest bidder. And that's just not going to work for the American people anymore. We need a power back to the actual people of America. And the way you represent that is not by saying, oh, it's capitalism, and then half these corporations and all of the farmers and the construction workers, they're all hiring illegal people here because they'll work for $3 an hour. That's not how capitalism works. That's how corruption through capitalism works. So instead, when the people actually have the power in their voice, that everybody else knows we are the many, politicians are the few, governments are the few, corporations are the few, when that power comes back to the people, you have a normalization or a standardization of cost of living, of expectations of pay for your labor. Right now, they think your labor is absolutely worthless because if you don't give them your labor, somebody else will. And then if they can't get it from them, they'll outsource it to the Philippines, they'll give it to India, they'll give it anywhere else. And if they can't outsource it, guess what? Through illegal immigration, they'll bring it in here.
In 2018, you imposed ad valorem duties, tariffs on imports.
Kevin Halford lost his home in the...
Now, I want to make something extremely visible here. This is not a pro-Trump channel. I am not a Trumper. I am not a toe the line for Trump. I'm not a Republican. I'm not a Democrat. I'm watching and able to see a little bit of the forest beyond the trees. When I know what's happening right now, if it could be followed through, if we could have the wrongs of the last 10 administrations righted, we'd be on the right path. If we could suffer, if we can get through what's coming with inflation, because this is all going to drive inflation up, prices of food is going to go up. Eventually, price of housing is going to come down. The corporations will have to take less profit. They'll have to stop being these mega corporations. They'll have to do all of these things, and the prices will come down for the cost of living. Houses will come down, electricity will come down, if we can make it through. But I'm not naive, and I know that this can be worse, that it can get worse from here. I also know that some of the things that are in play right now could be used against us if we get a Democrat or a very tyrannical administration in next.
Flood. We met him at a mobile soup kitchen.
I've got to flip this around so that we can watch it without getting tagged for publishing.
Supported wholly by the people in the community.
Past the flood underneath the overpass up here. Once it stopped, I was able to get out, saw that the river down here had taken over the main road.
There have been a lot of donations.
Why is this lady's microphone so freaking big, guys. Like, we do not need a microphone that big in the year 2025.
A lot of help from individuals, but as far as what you expected from the state or the federal government, where does that fall?
In the beginning, it was like hardly existent, and now it seems to be getting better, and I thank Trump for that.
Within weeks of the storm, then candidate
Trump, he said that if he were put back in the White House, that he would help. He would fix this.
Yeah.
What did you make of those
we're
comments
peons
at the
to
time?
them. Microphone envy, I guess so.
Face to face
Makes
with him,
makes this little microphone look like a duck,
and
huh?
try to get a sense of sincerity, whether he was for real or whether he was a
Yeah, that was wind fuzz on there, but I think this is a Rode, RODE microphone. They're just ridiculously large, and it's a cardioid microphone, I think, but they don't need that in this day and age. Come on now. Get somebody to work your audio at the end of the day.
And I mean...
Now, I want you to pay attention to this, okay? Because here's a Democrat president, and he's promising what Elon Musk and Donald Trump are doing and getting HELL for. He's promising to do what they are doing and catching poop for. So just listen. Listen to the guy on the, let me flip it around so you can see it the same way I am. Listen to the guy on the left say that he's going to do, that's Bill Clinton, famous office desk chair guy, right? Famous podium guy, famous look up at me guy, saying that America and the government is going to do what the guy on the right, Elon Musk, of the Department of Government Efficiency and the Donald Trump presidency are actually doing, but they're catching for it.
The first is to cut inessential government spending. I've been president 4 weeks. And
hey, what are you looking down at, Bill?
I've been president 4 weeks, and I've found things that I wouldn't have believed. The White House, when I became president, was running on Jimmy Carter's telephone system and Lyndon Johnson's switchboard. In this high wage, this high technology era.
Where are you? Anybody seen Monica?
With a procurement system that would have broken Einstein's brain.
The most number of people that could retire possibly in a month is 10,000. We're like, whoa, why is that? Well, because all the retirement paperwork is manual on paper. It's manually calculated, then written down on a piece of paper. Then it goes down a mine. And I'm like, what do you mean a mine? Like, yeah.
Yeah, the famous blue dress. Hey, Casual. Hey, Mamacita. Sierra, Papa Smurf, we are glad to have you guys in here tonight. Okay, so here's Donald Trump issued an emergency declaration. This is a research and rescue team from North Carolina headed toward Kentucky, where there was bad storms, flooding, people losing all of their stuff. Zakari, that's funny. Let's hope and let's keep everybody who's going through some bad storms in our thoughts, guys. They need to be prepared.
Against some major forces in fighting that particular battle. I mean, first of all, you have to sway public opinion in that direction, and then there's going to be a massive force arrayed against any possible interventions, that's for sure. So tell me what you think you could do, and also tell me why you don't think you would be stopped.
Well, I think they're going to try to stop us, but I've been thinking about this for 40 years. So I know how to do it. And you know, I've worked with Mark Hyman and Kelly Means and Casey Means and a lot of other people to figure out how to do it without having to go to Congress. To do it all with executive orders and policy changes.
Thank you, Ms. Lisa.
I'll give you one example.
Appreciate it.
I mean, you can get fluoride out of the water by executive order, out of the water systems all over the country, and that is, that's a big issue with public health. And
so there's RFK Jr. saying that executive orders can be used to take fluoride out of the water. They're also, I think, Louisiana. Let me see if I can find this for you guys today so that we can get to it. Louisiana, I think they just introduced a bill for the mass injection of children to stop promoting it as a state mandate. They say this comes on the heels of RFK Jr.'s confirmation to HHS. In a surprising announcement, they're starting to actually look at science.
First thing I asked about was the secret.
It comes on the heels of this, him getting into his position. Dr. Gregory Poland, a vaccinologist, co-director, describes the policy change as anti-science. He says, I've grown up in an era where other than smallpox, DPT, and flu vaccine, we didn't have any other vaccines we have today. And so our friends of ours, got infected, sick, missed schools, some developing polio, he continues. I mean, it's shocking to think. Now, I want to ask a question, okay? And I can't really ask it on YouTube because YouTube has its own policies and its own guidelines. But my question for you is, if a company, right? Not a person, not a government, but if a company is profiting off the government mandating you, forcing you to do something, and the same government also makes it so that you can't sue that company if they hurt you through the forced injection or giving of something to you, is that freedom? Legal? Is that even legal? Should it be legal? We need to start asking all of those right questions. Yeah, Sick and Tired says, I feel the need to clear my throat. Yeah, he does have that spasmodic
answer, etc. But there are other things like, it would be very hard. You never get congressional approval to ban glyphosate, which is causing all kinds of health problems and cancers all over this country. And so
that's another thing, the food system. I mean, all the things he's saying are the right things to be thinking, right? Now we have to look and see what is actually going to happen. What are we going to see come of this right way of thinking? Because the right way of thinking, of course, is, should these things be legal? Should they be allowed? Should they be forced? Should the profits be where they are? Should they be taken over as government if they're going to force you to do this? We should be asking the right questions. Now, what comes next? That's the trend that I'm looking for. And that's why I tell you, I'm not a Republican. I'm not a Democrat. I'm not for Trump. I'm not against him. I'm not for. Of course, I've been against some Biden things, of course. But I'm going to look at what's happening. And what I see happening is we're asking the right questions, finding out some of the right garbage that has taken place. Now what happens next? Do we see the politicians that have acted in fraud and corruption actually suffer some of the responsibility of the things that they have done? Do we see the corporations suffer some of the responsibility for the actual physical harm that they have caused? Do we see the economy suffer some of the responsibility for outsourcing everything and making it so that hedge funds own 60% of the homes inside of the country? If we don't start seeing some of these responsibilities actually come to fruition and actually start to happen in a way that you're like, oh yeah, Pfizer effed around and found out. Oh yeah, Senator Warren effed around and found out. Oh, BlackRock? Oh, they effed around and found out. Oh, Mondelez putting poison in your food, allowing glyphosate. Oh, Monsanto? Yeah, they have to around and find out. If we don't start seeing some accountability through the actual fruition of some form of punishment through responsibility, nothing is ever going to change. And it doesn't matter what RFK Jr. says that's right. It doesn't matter what Trump says that's right. What matters is what's actually happening. There's proof in the pudding, right? So that's why we're here today. We're looking at all this information and we're saying, okay, I see what's happening, and I also accept that there's going to be a burden between now and then. It's like if your doctor should be telling what they should tell people across the country, right? Oh, you have diabetes? Okay, here's a diet exercise plan, or pre-diabetes, or your back wouldn't hurt so much if you got out there and did this. That means you're going to have a burden between where the doc says you need to eat better, exercise more, stop smoking, don't drink as much, and where you're going to feel better. Everything in between is a burden, right? Well, that's what we're going to experience as an entire country, is a burden right now. Our burden is going to be on the fact that we will not have the cheap, illegal labor that we have had for decades, through Trump's administration, through Bush's administration, through Clinton's administration, through Obama's administration, through Biden's administration. We're not going to have that anymore. Amazon was doing it. You've got farmers doing it. Don't even get me started on the farming and how they have governmentized that. You have construction all doing it. Everybody was using this cheap, illegal labor. And so between now, realizing that and where we're going to be, we are going to have a burden between now and then. And we're going to have to accept that. We're going to have to live through that. Finances are going to get a little worse. It sucks. Are we going to make it through it is the right question. That's what we have to start to think about.
But here's what you can do. You can, NIH has...
Miss Ladybug, a super chat. You can't have any more of Canada. We already shared Jordan Peterson. Just pray we can get rid of our dear leader. Thank you, Miss Ladybug. I really appreciate it. You know, we are going... hey, Storm, I didn't see you pop in there. We are going to start to see a real change between Canada and the United States. Hopefully we find some good middle ground there.
A budget of $42 billion a year, and it distributes that money to 56,000 scientists who are at research centers, mainly universities in North America, and, Canada, the United States, and some in Europe. And they're supposed to be doing basic science, but what they really do nowadays is they do drug development for the pharmaceutical industry. So NIH is now the primary incubator for new pharmaceutical drugs. And it changed that rule. That changed. NIH used to be the primary scientific agency in the world. It changed. That changed in 1980.
Okay, he continues on there. I don't think we have to keep watching what he has to say there. U.S. has conditionally now approved the avian influenza vaccine for poultry. They're saying a cartel of vaccine makers are realizing their famous dream of night, vaccinating hundreds of millions of egg-laying hens inside of the USA. I do have a lot of thoughts on that. Armored Cybertruck debuting. This is Elon Musk's dream right here. Yeah, need to take all the poisons out of food. That's right. Okay, I wouldn't drive well, of course, you give us any one of us, if we're like, oh, I hate Cybertruck. I don't care. If Elon Musk is like, hey, every citizen of America, here's a Cybertruck, I'm going to drive it. Let's face it, right? But I would drive an armored Cybertruck before I ever drive the other ones. But I'm not into electric vehicles because how can you be both into electric vehicles and understand that it has no sustainability as far as your ability to recharge it in a grid down situation? Now, I can go siphon out gas from somewhere else, diesel from somewhere else. I'm not siphoning out electricity when the grid's down. That's awesome, Ben. Everything, getting chickens in April, saving up. Okay, so this is flooding in Kentucky. That's where Trump just moved through executive, I don't know if it was executive order or just a mandate and telling them to do it. Moved some of the North Carolina search and rescue teams over here to Kentucky because of a massive amount of flooding. These are the kind of things you have to get ready for, my friends. Natural disasters, your house getting ruined, problems in your area, violence in your street. Not just your city, not just, oh man, things are getting bad. No, on your street. I've got to turn this around.
Unelected officials, yesterday the Doge guys post classified information on their website, and they had to realize, we didn't realize that agency was a classified agency.
They're just trying to smear the entire movement to get information out in the public. Now, this guy says they posted classified information. What they actually posted was how many employees there were. Not too much classified. They still had to take it down.
Fundamentally change our judiciary. Biden has decided, with the complicity of Senate Democrats, to abandon the notion of fair and impartial judges who apply the law, and instead to fill the bench with partisan zealot.
That's old, but what he has to say is still relevant, but I just don't want to hear it. This is Syria. Air Force One flying over Daytona tonight. You can really see today, you can really see the change in sentiment of the people erupting in maddening applause. And I think that we can actually, let's get a video of that right here. Air Force One Daytona. People actually just breaking out in applause. American greatness is back.
Welcome you to NASCAR on Fox and the race, along with Jeff Gordon, Jamie McMurray. I'm Chris Myers, and nice to have you along with us for this special moment.
And that's what we do here, right? We prepare for the worst, but we hope for the best.
Never have I felt the excitement and energy. We've had great racing on the track, but we've got the president landing right now. The fans are pumped up. I mean, wow, what a day.
It's one of the most incredible things I've ever seen to see. They said that plane's 800 feet above the racetrack right now. What an entrance by the president of the United States.
800 feet above the racetrack.
He'll give the command. Presidents, of course, have attended NASCAR races, Daytona before, but again, the first to give the command for this, the Daytona 500. As we watch.
Interesting. So here we are back in Syria. And with Syria and the new leadership there's a whole bunch going on that isn't even being talked about yet because nobody knows the whole picture. And you know how when you're putting a puzzle together and you just kind of see the picture beginning to form? That's what Syria is doing right now. That's what their government is doing. Might be a dictatorship, might be some regime doing. You can see the disconnected security here in the crowds. A fever, right? That's what it looks like. This is a fever. There's a lot of Allah, a lot of Akbars going on. Interesting. UKPM says they're ready to send troops over to Ukraine. One person polls, do you support sending active troops to secure the border? 80% said yes. On what grounds do they want to send? 80% of the people are like, yeah, that's fine. Send our kids off to protect Ukraine. After you sent our money off, now send our children off. This is crazy.
Don't buy swastikas! Don't buy swastikas! Don't buy swastikas! Don't buy swastikas! Don't buy swastikas!
Okay, so make no mistake, this is a coup. Stop the Musk-Trump coup. Overthrow oligarchs. Musk is stealing from you. Trump shredding Constitution. Go steal data on Mars. That was the clever one for him. He was like, you know what? I'm going to get him. I'm changing people's opinions with this one. Go steal data on Mars. That'll show them. We the people, not the billionaires. You know, here's the funny thing. When George Soros started having all of the people listen to the exact same news broadcast over and over again. And the broadcasters would all say the same exact script. And when you lined them up and you pinned them together, you could see that they were sending out massive amounts of information and propaganda, right? That's when it becomes propaganda. Let's look. Propaganda. Let's see what the actual definition of that is. A biased way of spreading information to influence people's opinions or actions. So when you had George Soros doing it, no one was standing out in front of places saying anything about it. Or at least if they were, these people weren't. So here you've got a whole bunch of silvers out here. And don't get me wrong, Beard's getting silver. You got a whole bunch of silvers out here standing up, condemning this. Now, is this because they've had some personal retribution from the actions of what Musk is doing? Or are they just getting caught up in the propaganda?
Don't buy swastikas! Don't buy swastikas! Don't buy swastikas! Don't buy swastikas!
Stop the billionaire takeover. What exactly is he? Stop the treasury steal. Interesting.
Paul, who keeps asking for information on gain of function and exactly when and where and very specific FOIA requests. And I saw him say today at the Oval Office. They're still gaslighting me. I can't get it. And Bobby said, I'm going to walk down there this afternoon and make sure you get it. Those are the types of things he can do right away, and I think you're going to see this holdup of transparency and information being held from our political representatives, being held from us. I saw him speak with Rand Paul, who keeps asking for information on gain of function and exactly when and where and very specific FOIA requests. And I saw him say today at the Oval Office, they're still gaslighting me. I can't get it. And Bobby said, I'm going to walk down there this afternoon.
Very true. Look up
and
to.
Make sure you get it. Those are the types of things he can do right away. And I think you're going to see this holdup of.
Is that what we're doing now? It's now MAGAHA, because it's got to be Make America Great Again. It's got to be two H's in the middle, right? So it needs to be Make America Great and Healthy and Make America Great and Healthy Again. Okay, I guess that's what it is now. Or is it Make America Great Again and Healthy Again? Well, all right.
Of transparency and information.
Protection Committee.
This is inspired, they say, by Tennessee and some other states in the USA that are doing it. They're making it illegal now to, what? Spray chemtrails. Interesting. I thought it didn't happen. I thought it was just a conspiracy.
People of District 87 are pleased to present for your consideration House File 191, a bill to prohibit geoengineering. At this time, I do wish to bring the committee's attention to Senate File 142, which is a superior legislative document I would also implore the committee to consider. This legislation was inspired in part by the state of Tennessee and their recent law, as well as dozens of other U.S.
You're right, not just chemtrailing, geoengineering as a whole. So whether they're putting it on the ground, they're putting it up in the air, they're spewing it out of a volcano, they're throwing it into cracks, whatever they're doing, stop messing with the earth. Isn't it funny how the same people who were okay with that are saying that it's man-made climate change? The same people, the same groups and sides that are okay with spraying glyphosate and all sorts of poisons all over the food products, poisoning your kids through the food that they eat, the same people that are okay with all of the other things are saying it's man's fault, so pay your taxes, stop using combustion vehicles. They're just picking up the talking points that they're told to repeat.
States considering their own geoengineering regulations. This is in addition to discussions happening in the European Union and as well as congressionally mandated policy documents produced by the Joe Biden White House. There is no
Ron.
The potential for polluting atmospheric activity as described in the bill.
That's what I'm talking about. We need to see the actual fighter jets up there. If they see a plane doing it, something that they shouldn't be doing, you need to see the video. I need to see one fighter jet come up on one side, one come up on the other side, and this guy be videotaping that fighter jet. And I want to overhear them telling them to stop spraying and put it on the ground right now. And then I want to see the cops meet them when they're on the ground. We have to have accountability here, folks. And if we don't start to see it, people are it's going to be worse for them. If their vision, Trump, J.D. Vance, Elon Musk, if their vision is so short-sighted that they think they could just say what's good, what the people want to hear, and not actually follow through with it, then we have a big problem. But if their vision is to go all the way through, and that vision is to actually wipe the slate clean of fraud, get rid of corruption, exchange the distrust in government for some trust in government, well, then maybe we'll be on to something. Well, guys, thank you so much for being here with us tonight for another live show. Make sure you hit the subscribe button down there. If you like these live shows, please consider joining us as a member. Our members asked us to make them free on YouTube for everybody else. You're paying so that other people can watch, and they might not be able to. They might put it into their preps, but please only become a member if it's not burdening you. So if you want to support me and my wife and our oldest son in what we do, we really appreciate it. I thank you for that, if it's not a burden to you. So thank you guys for being here with us, watching these events unfold. They're not going to get any less tricky. Thank you to everybody for watching and to all the members who have asked to keep this out there for everyone. From my family to yours, much love. I'm about to go eat some homemade spaghetti, homemade breadsticks. I hope they're garlic breadsticks because I've got to have my garlic. I eat 1 clove a day. I'm not a doctor. I'm not telling you what to do, but I used to be hypertensive, and before that I was pre-hypertensive, mean high blood pressure. And there's some documents out there, some government studies on National Institute of Health that tell you 1 clove of garlic is about the equivalent of first-line antihypertensive medication. And ever since I started eating a clove of garlic every day, I haven't been hypertensive. Maybe it's a coincidence. I don't know. But I'm going to go eat it. So thank you guys for being here with us. Love you much. And just keep watching and knowing that we got to see the forest beyond the trees. And then we'll know whether this is good or not. Stay safe.